You had mentioned Alex Van Pelt earlier, so I'm going to ask this question from Phil Knopp in Nashville, Tennessee. Hey, Mary Kay, what is Alex Van Pelt's specific role since Kevin Stefanski is still calling plays?
Well, he's got a couple of very specific roles, and that is to, to work on game planning and to really control and oversee the whole offense during the week. He's going to have some help from Bill Musgrave with some of those meetings because Alex Van Pelt's other huge role this year is to be the quarterback's coach. And that's a big job this year. And the reason he has that job is because of what a tremendous job he did with other quarterbacks that he's worked with, such as Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers loved him, loved working with him. Alex Van Pelt is a former NFL quarterback. He knows what it's like to stand back there and look out and read a defense. He knows what it's like to take a hit. He knows what it's like to run a no huddle. He doesn't have to guess. And I think that's invaluable. So I think it's really great that he is the quarterback's coach. So when he is really tied up with those guys, and he's also got to get Joshua Dobbs, who's only started 2 NFL games, ready to be a backup and go in and play. So that's a big job too. And then Dorian Thompson-Robinson, a rookie coming out, will, for all intents and purposes, be probably the number 3. So that's a big duty to be in there doing that. But then he will also, he'll be very, very involved in the game planning, and he will set up the meetings, and then he'll turn some of that over to Bill Musgrave. But he's got a big job this year.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is Kevin's the play caller, but Alex has such a big role in all of that because Kevin's got to be the head coach. He's got to be the guy that kind of runs that whole organization. And so some of those little things that an offensive coordinator would do, I mean, that's what Alex Van Pelt has to do. He's got to be kind of the coach of that offense over there and be a sounding board for Kevin. It's just on Sundays, Kevin gets to put on the headset and call the plays, but Alex Van Pelt is doing, I mean, he's probably doing a lot of that heavy lifting on that offensive side of the ball.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think the way they have it set up this year, I think it's really going to be good. I think that I think Alex is going to be really good for Deshaun. And I would have to think that Deshaun Watson probably had some input in Alex Van Pelt being his quarterback's coach. I think he's really excited about that. I really do. And I think Alex will be, sort of a good go-between, between Kevin Stefanski and Deshaun Watson to make sure that the lines of communication are open, that if Deshaun likes something or doesn't like something, he can make sure that he's articulating that to Alex Van Pelt, who can then convey all of that to Kevin Stefanski, because Kevin's not always going to be in the quarterback room. He will be in there, a fair amount, but, as you mentioned, he's got to oversee the whole process. And he's got a new defensive coordinator this year who can basically run things on his own. And he's got a new special teams coordinator this year who can also run things completely on his own, but he still has to have a handle on everything. And what Kevin Stefanski has discovered in his first 3 years on the job is that there are always a million little fires that you have to be putting out all day long. I mean, whether it is a player who was late to a team meeting or whatever the case may be, there, a staff member that has COVID or whatever. I mean, there's just constantly a million things that you have to deal with on your plate. So I think he's got things set up very well this year.
And I always point this out. The head coach of the NFL team is the only person we talk to, 4 times a week, 5 times a week? Like, that's the only person that we talk to all those times. And they have to answer, because of that, they have to answer for everything the GM does, everything that, some person on the social media team sends out a tweet they shouldn't have sent out, or, there's something that doesn't even fall under their umbrella of having to manage or deal with. They have to answer for on a regular basis, because that's the person that sits up in front of that room 4 or 5 times a week to answer questions from us.
Yeah, and I think that Kevin Stefanski has the right demeanor for that sort of thing. There are certain coaches that you knew just couldn't handle all of that. And I think Freddie Kitchens was one of those guys it was just like, there was too much on his plate. There was just too much going on. There were too many moving parts and too many pieces, and you didn't know how to respond to this or answer that. Kevin does a really good job of multitasking and of handling 12 things coming at him. he's sort of built for chaos. He really is. And you have to be. I think that's one of the number one things that is one of his number one assets is the fact that he can handle all of that stuff that goes on in the course of any given day and then plop himself down in front of us and answer for it all.